desirable place to live, work, and play. Through proper stewardship, city leadership will maximize resources to enhance the quality of life and positive economic growth. So I'm going to stop there and see if that mission statement kind of aligns with the City Council's vision. If there's anything you would like to change about, or if you think it sounds good.
It looked good before I lost it on this.
I know. Anyway.
You have a copy of it?
Oh,
Just so you can,
That's page 4. And Jennifer, can you pull your microphone a little closer to you? Like, will the whole thing slide forward?
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
well, kind of.
You have a soft voice to start with, so. All
I do. I'm sorry.
right, that's better. Thank you.
There we go.
yeah, I believe the vision statement is, or the mission, excuse me, the vision statement, yeah, that's right. Follows direction that we've kind of been moving forward on.
I agree on that, Mr. Mayor.
are we on the mission or the vision?
The vision, the mission statement?
This is the mission statement.
Yeah.
We're on the mission?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We need better vision, I guess.
Yeah, that would be. So backing up, looking at this, okay, I thought maybe, so the city of Beaumont is committed to, what I did was a small rewrite, was providing exceptional core services to our community. I didn't know if that was necessary, if we needed to add that. I thought that's something that we strive to do. But I didn't know if we need to have this provide or providing, if that makes a difference. That was a question that I had.
I think that would be okay to change that.
Yeah.
Yep, so change it to, so the direction would be committed to providing exceptional core services to the community.
Yeah, it's just a small change, but, yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
All right.
Anything else from council? No? All right.
All right, so next we will get into the vision statement. The city of Beaumont maintains its reputation as a safe community and evolves to meet the needs of Beaumont's residential and commercial growth. The city strives to create an economically balanced community to achieve fiscal sustainability and ensure that city resources are maximized and employed in a manner that meets Beaumont's long-term needs, as well as the needs for every citizen while enhancing and maintaining Beaumont's natural beauty. Let's see if anyone has any suggestions or if they like that.
Are these defaulted from previous mission and vision statements?
Well, these actually kind of were created from the goals. So the adopted goals, we kind of used a lot of that language to build forward the paragraphs that would go for your mission and vision.
Okay.
If they're consistent with what we've been after, right? Looks like we're good, Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
And so next we have values. And so what we did is built an acronym to remind us of values. And we came up with the city of Beaumont aspires to reach new heights. So aspires, the ASPIRE, all represent different values. And so we have accountability, stewardship, promote trust, integrity and ethics, responsibility, and excellence. And then in the next slide, we'll get into each of those. So A stands for accountability. We hold ourselves accountable for our actions and must be transparent with one another and with our community. S stands for stewardship. We will be good stewards of city resources and the public. P stands for promote trust. We strive to promote trust in our community and with one another through effective communication, respect, transparently, and broadly sharing information. I stands for integrity and ethics. Our actions will remain the trust and confidence of the public and the organization. R stands for responsibility. We take responsibility for our actions as an organization achieving results. And E stands for excellence. We strive to maintain excellence in everything we do for the organization and for the public. I'll stop there and see what everyone thinks of the acronym ASPIRE, if you agree with those values.
Well, I agree with the values. I had another acronym similar to what you have, which coincides with the city elevated, which was elevate. And I had the keywords as excellence, loyalty, engage, value, accountability, trust, and efficiency. But going back through yours again, I think yours is very good as well. So it was just an idea that I had. I thought I would throw it out there. And like I said, I was just using elevate to be consistent with our city elevated. But aspire to reach new heights also does the same thing. So I just put that out there for council, and we can talk about that.
What was the last E that you had?
Had efficiency. Efficiency, which we could tie back to being good stewards of working and responding to address concerns in an efficient manner. So that was one of the ideas.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate what you proposed, and I would agree also that Aspire keeps it a little bit more simple and a little shorter.
Yeah.
So I would say stay with that. But
Okay,
I
perfect.
think what you brought up was very nice, and it kind of touched on everything. I don't know if we want to just add 2 words to each thing, but I would almost say for E for excellence and efficiency in there. But I do think the efficiency is probably covered with the accountability and stewardship, so I think it's good as is.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, on that, I mean, I agree with the, first time I've seen this, I mean, Aspire, it's good, it's very good. If we want to really, to elevate, we have to work on Aspire's goal to elevate the city. If you want to use the elevate in there. And, I think the Aspires will elevate the city. That's the way I see it. And, Mayor, that's a good word. I mean, inserting the elevate in there, but that's the way I see it.
Okay.
But Aspire is very good. I mean, I didn't even think about that.
Mr. Mayor?
Sir,
So just a thought, where it says staff recommends the values, it says the city of Beaumont aspires to reach new heights. How about the city of Beaumont aspires to elevate our city to new heights? If we want to incorporate elevate into that, since it goes along with it, or is it, but at the same time, I'm okay kind of as is. I just thought with
Yeah.
the effort that you put into that, and I kind of like that it ties in.
well, and then looking back at Aspires, to me, that really covers the key things that we were working on or have been working on since I've been on council that I can recall, is that accountability was really big. Stewardship, being good stewards of the city's money, really working hard on promoting trust, and key is in the integrity and the ethics and responsibility. So, I really think, going back over this again, at least in this workshop, I think Aspire is a better fit.
Yeah, and
I would
Mr. Mayor, I
agree.
agree with the word aspire. I was just referring to, where, right under the line where it says staff recommended values, where it says the city of Beaumont aspires to reach new heights, just changing the wording of to reach new heights to include the word elevate in there, if we wanted to tie it into that theme.
So
I don't wanna
just
overdo it.
adding the word
Yeah,
elevate
so just,
to, in that.
a thought would be to rewrite it as the city of Beaumont aspires to elevate our city to new heights. Only if we want the word elevate in
Right.
there,
No,
which
that's a good
I think is a
idea.
good idea.
Any comments from
We,
council?
we could also Mayor, if I could.
Councilmember Martinez?
You know, we could, if you want, I like that incorporating the elevate there. I think we need to keep inspire, but I like the elevate to new heights. We can also change the excellence to elevate, and then we strive to elevate towards excellence in everything we do, or, you know, if you wanted to do that.
That's a good idea.
Or you can leave excellence and say we strive to elevate and just use that in the definition. But I think it'd kind of be nice if you used elevate down there as you see it. You kind of see that word there, because it is part of the logo. So that'd be kind of nice, I think. But excellence is important, so I don't want to do away with that. So incorporate it in some way. But thank you for
Yeah, I think-
suggesting that, Mary.
I would agree. I think we could incorporate that in the sentence,
Okay.
the opening sentence, if you could do that for us.
So just for clarification, do we leave the word excellence in aspire and just add elevate in that sentence above?
Yeah, that's what I would.
Okay. You
I
okay
like
with that?
excellence as well.
Because I like what Julio brought. That was a good idea. I just kind of took mine and twisted it a little bit, but I like it both, you know, so, I'm okay either way.
Mayor Pro
Your
Tem?
turn.
It's gonna be a long night.
Yeah.
I'm good with what you guys.
At least there's no tiles. Quick, once we're done with that, I have a quick comment on vision that I forgot to mention.
I think we're done with values, right?
We done with value?
I think we're done with values.
On the vision, does council have any concern of me changing the citizen to resident? So that it reads deployed in a manner that meets Beaumont's long-term needs as well as the needs for every resident while enhancing and maintaining Beaumont's natural beauty. You know, the citizen seems so vague and broad.
Residents good,
Yeah, I like that.
or Beaumontians.
My,
Really a long night.
my take on that is if we will change it to a residence, what about the people who works in our businesses in here? That's the only thing I come out on my mind right now. And citizens is a citizens, I mean, so they have to adopt and comply with our goals and everything. If we use the residents, so we're limiting it to the residents in here on that. That's my take on that. I mean,
That's a good point. And it is talking about commercial, so,
yeah.
well, I'll leave it up to the council. I can go either way. You can stay citizen. It's just, I know we try not to use citizen so much anymore if we can. But it is a good point if you're trying to incorporate everyone in the city.
Yeah.
So that's a good.
Who comes
point
in,
as
within our city, I mean,
well. Okay,
Okay. So we'll keep it citizen?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right, so now we're just gonna go over the adopted city council goals. Make sure that you agree they still align. So we have public safety, ensure Beaumont maintains its reputation as a safe community and evolves to meet the needs of Beaumont's residential and commercial growth. Quality of life, enhance and maintain Beaumont's natural beauty and offer parks and recreation services that addresses the needs for every citizen. Community services, provide core services to community that ensure Beaumont remains a desirable place to live, work, and play. Sustainable community, ensure that city resources are maximized and employed in a manner that meets Beaumont's long-term needs. Intergovernmental interagency relationships, work with local agencies to achieve common goals and leverage area resources. Economic development, create an economically balanced community to achieve fiscal sustainability. Do these goals still align? I think everything we built for the mission statement and vision kind of wrapped around these goals.
We good? All right. Moving onward.
All right, so there was a city program survey that went out. City council and senior management each individually completed the survey. Results of individual respondents are anonymous, and the respondents are asked to score individual major services the criticality of the service, satisfactory or unsatisfactory levels of the way the services are provided. City council and executive staff survey results were tabulated separately. And what this survey was looking for is, one, if city staff aligned with council, if there were any significant deviations and where they were and why, and if we're funding, putting the right resources to critical programs, and if there were any deficiencies within our programs that needed addressed.
So I have a question on the yellow column on the right. You have average criticality rating and city staff rating. So what's the difference between the two?
Right, so what this is this is actually the aggregate of the city council's surveys. And then on the right, you had an average rating for the council. And then right next to that, for comparing purposes, right, comparability, there's the city staff rating, so the average city staff rating. And then you can look at each of those to kind of see where each of the two lie. So we want to make sure that city staff align in with city council. And so going through like that and reviewing them side by side, we can kind of determine where it is.
So the left is city council, the right city staff.
Correct.
Okay, I was just wondering whether the left was a combination of city staff and council, but
No, no,
I like the
good.
way you did it there.
Right, right.
Good.
And so 70 services were evaluated. And for a city council, the aggregate results were 47 rated as 8 or above, so highly critical, 23 rated as 5 to 8, which is moderately critical, and there were 0 rated as below 5, which is low criticality.
This is interesting.
And then for the city staff, 70 services also were evaluated, and the aggregate results show that 35 rated as 8 or above, so highly critical, 34 rated as 5 to 8, moderately critical, and 1 rated as below 5, so low criticality. And you can review all of those are in your handouts that you received.
And do you mind reminding me what the acceptable was?
Yeah, so for the services, there was a rating on whether or not the services provided are acceptable or unacceptable.
Okay,
So city council, all of them were rated acceptable.
Got it.
And there were a few that city staff had rated unacceptable, but I did not include those in the handouts. And if you would like those, I could send those to you.
did you say 2 or a few?
There was a few, and that's, there,
You just can tell us what they were.
okay,
Yeah,
there was, I should have put them in here. I didn't have them actually marked out separately. There was only a few that were marked as unacceptable. And there are comments that go along with that I can provide to council to review later.
Okay,
Okay, you would do
And
that?
The one average below was parks and recreational facility rental. So that staff average on that criticality score was 4.67 as well, versus council at 6.5.
and the comments are from both groups or just city council?
Yeah, these comments are from city council.
Just city council, okay.
And if you would like, I could provide you with the other comments from city staff. I could send those to you. And they're all anonymous. And do we have any questions with this?
I think part of the good news on this is when you look across the board, it's fairly consistent. I think staff is clear on the council mission, and I think is working really kind of lockstep with where you guys are wanting to put priorities.
Yeah, it's exciting to see that.
And what we'll do with city staff and our budget workshops is we'll go through these, and we'll make sure that what the city staff is working towards aligns with the city council views on these programs.
Excellent.
Very good.
Yeah.
I wonder where the citizens and the residents would rate these.
Well, we actually have the city livability survey,
Okay,
which actually tells us that the citizens rate public safety very high. And they have identified that the quality of that service is very high. But where we have a gap really is the economic development perspective and having things to do. And so that's what I think we hear from most citizens is, okay, where are we on that? Street maintenance, making sure that that's taken care of as a kind of core service. And then you've got the overall trust and belief and integrity of the city. And so that was a pretty low bar. And I think in that survey, what we found was that the attitude that citizens have and the faith that they have and trust that they have in city administration is lower than what we see as a national average. So we know we have work to do there on communications, from what we saw. But those are really kind of the three primary takeaways from.
Thank you,
Yeah,
that's
really,
helpful
really,
for
yeah.
what we're doing tonight.
Okay, are there any other questions with this? Would you like me to move on?
Yeah, I mean, this is great. I mean, looking at it, I mean, the economic development and everything, I know I made a lot of comments on that. I mean, and seeing the other column on the right-hand side is so low, and then I'm low also on that side. So this is nice to really address the concern on this. Very good. Good job. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, so next we're going to move to the current financial condition. And so over the past 3 years, the financial condition of the city has continued to stabilize and build its reserve balances. So page 6 of your packet includes a summary of the past 3-year actuals, including fiscal year '21 unaudited results. And due to positive operating results of previous years and a $5 million one-time payment received during fiscal year '20, the city's general fund unassigned fund balance is $17.3 million. In fiscal year '21, City Council allocated $5.8 million in one-time general fund to address various needs of the city. And the City Council has a policy to maintain a minimum of 25% of general fund expenditures. So the fiscal year '22 estimated general fund expense is $39.5 million, which will require a reserve balance of $9.8 million. The unassigned fund balance available for City Council for appropriation is $7.26 million, which should not include changes in pay or new positions, as there may not be sufficient funds to continue those types of expenditures. And what we're going to do is city staff will review the one-time fund, potential uses of those funds, and make recommendations and bring those to you at a later date for a council discussion. The city's wastewater operations have increased to meet continued growth in association with the newly constructed wastewater treatment plant expansion and brine line project. The refinement of operation has increased staffing and operational needs, and as of June 30th, '21, the unaudited wastewater fund has approximately $5.6 million in unrestricted cash reserves. And the fiscal year '22 wastewater budget is $11 million, and with a 25% reserve policy puts the reserve allocation at about $2.7 million. And page 7 of your packet includes a summary of the past 3 years' wastewater results, including fiscal year '21 unaudited actuals. And your transit fund is balanced, and currently we do not have to meet fare box requirements.
One of the things that we've tried to do, particularly in the current budget that we're in now, is, on the one hand, we look at these large additions to the reserve fund. And, 5 years ago when we first started doing this, we had a dearth of information. We didn't really know what financial numbers to trust. We didn't really have a sense for what the actual trends were with regard to our revenue streams and increases and decreases, and what factors were influencing that. So we went to work and really tried to identify as far back as we could with solid information what our economic performance has been. And we've been trying to target and dial in to more effectively use those dollars that are coming in. So on the one hand, again, it's nice to have those reserve funds, but we really need to deploy that. And so we set that policy at 25% is really kind of the max operating threshold to carry year to year. And where we do better and we add a little bit more, we need to pull those dollars out potentially at some point when council's ready and put those into one time. We have tons of deferred capital. There's many parks, streets, other things that are out there that desperately need help and need attention. So as we are working through this and we're building forward on these models and we use these reserve fund policies, we're really trying to use every available dollar that we think is there. And so instead of having a 5% margin at the end of the year in terms of where we are on revenue, for example, we want to really be in the 2% range. That really needs to kind of come down and be conservative. When we're looking at the expenditure side, I would expect expenditures to be in the 98 to 99% range of what we have budgeted. And so, part of what we're looking at here on the base moving forward is, are we dialing in closer and getting a better feel, and we're tracking better and forecasting better on what those actual revenue trends are and what the key factors are influencing those. So we can better use those dollars that are there, because there's so many departmental needs that may impact us on a recurring basis that we can capture and begin to do better on more effectively using those dollars.
Moving along with that, city staff have prepared 2 general fund revenue models. And the first was using the recommended GFOA forecasting method, which applies historical data, prior year forecast errors and trends, and then utilizes statistical formulas to predict future results. And the other model prepared is a city staff independent model, which uses assumptions related to population change, permit activity projection, and economic trends such as inflation and recession. And so what we did, next slide, is this is a comparison showing you the two. Okay, so the blue line is your GFOA forecasting method, and your orange line is the staff forecasting line. And you can see in this comparison, the general fund projected revenue from city staff calculates $40.5 million for fiscal year '23, while a GFOA recommended forecast projects $41.5. And this results in a difference of $883,000, which is about a 2% difference. The GFOA forecasting methodology model is a guide to determine whether the core assumptions are in line with other forecasting methods, while a city staff model contemplates local economic data to provide a more granular assessment of the factors impacting Beaumont. So if you look here, you can see what we've done is we've built in recession forecasts. So you can see that kind of you have a delta between 24 and 27 to 28, where the city staff model is a little lower than what the GFOA is. It deviates a little bit more. And that's the assumptions that we've made in for the city staff projections. So there's things like throughout 22 and 23, inflation. So we want to include inflation in there. And what's that going to do? We need to keep looking at that and how it's going to grow. Where the GFOA model kind of takes into the past trend. So it's looking at past actual results and using that trend to follow a model, but it's not taking in the local impacts that we would see here in Beaumont. And so city staff has developed a model that will put in those kind of assumptions that we're looking at or what we're looking forward to, including recession, and put it in the model. But as you get out of that recessionary period, the two lines start to kind of get closer together again and go along. So this is used to kind of compare to say, okay, are we about in line with what other methodology for forecasting would say? Are we going the right direction? Does this look okay? You can kind of see in the past results, those are actual results to the GFOA model, and it has a similar trend line. So they kind of go over the same. So you'll see that continues on as future years go through.
So-
Anything you wanted to add to that?
So I understand before 22, those are actual numbers in the blue?
Correct.
And the
correct.
orange is based on a model that was run back 4 years ago, or is that run now
So
retroactively?
the city staff model is actual results up until 22. 22 is your budget number, so they both meet right there.
Okay,
The blue line is your GFOA forecasting method, which is actually a forecasting method that methodology that it uses. So that's a
Okay.
forecast.
okay. So the orange ones are the actual
Correct.
before
correct,
22.
Correct.
Okay.
And then city staff takes the budget number for 22 and then moves that forward into a forecast.
And that orange line's been updated through, I think, September, to the end of August or beginning of September. So that's our most current revised forecast. The key thing to me that we'll zero in on is that delta. So, you know, we're within 1 to 2% from 22 through 24. And when you begin to see that delta, then, you know, starting in 24 through 28, you know, that's the key part that we'd want to look into, right? So are we being too conservative? Are there some additional opportunities that we're not capturing? So we want to continue to refine that. But the key thing is we wanted to make sure you guys are comfortable with our methodology, that we're kind of headed down the right path. And, you know, the core thing to remember, we show that we start to see a potential recessionary trend in 24, which means that we would start to feel, we would actually, in the economy, begin to see some sort of trend in 23, because we're going to have a year lag on assessed value in the application of Prop 8 and Prop 13. And then in addition to that, sales tax is, you know, a quarter to 2 quarters behind. So the sale happens for, you know, 3 months to 6 months before we actually get our sales tax receipts. So we see a lag. And so when you look at that trend, we've gone back to 2007 and we've tried to model what happened to our assessed value. And we tried to model what was going on with regard to loss of AV when you apply Prop 8 and Prop 13. And so when we went through that process, we identified a trend that's typically a 5 to 6 year trend recessionary cycle that happens in almost a wave. And so Beaumont continued to see positive growth even through the Great Recession that happened in 09 through 2012. So we think we'll continue to still see positive growth when you take in, at least in the next 5 years, and you take in what's going on around us. And you take in the demand for housing and the growth that we have and what we have already is approved and entitled properties. So we also know, for example, you know, with Pardee and some of their projects that they own that asset on a cash basis. And so they can afford to hold, but they also can move and they can adjust pricing to keep their projects afloat and moving forward. So there's some key factors that we're thinking of when we kind of look into this. So, but the key thing is, you know, are y'all comfortable with kind of the recessionary cycles that we're looking at? Now, the assumptions do not factor in as deep a recession as we saw in 09, because that was really a major economic event. So we're looking at impacts that are maybe half of that, you know, as you kind of look at that, but the timing remains consistent. And if you look at what happened to residential AV in that time frame, we lost about nearly 27% of our AV through Prop 8 and Prop 13. So it took about 7 or 8 years to get back to what we were in that assessed valuation period during that time. So, there's some factors like that that, again, the GFOA model cannot factor in, that we know are there. And so, again, the other thing that I worry about is, you know, are we putting too much into reserves at the end of the year? You know, so there's some additional factors and things we need to understand and know, I think, that may or may not tighten that line up, you know, as we move forward. The other things that really concerns me is, you know, we are so reliant on sales tax, you know, as a source of revenue. It generates about 7 million, you know, moving on into next year, you know, so that's a seventh of our, you know, or an eighth of our general fund revenue stream in total. So that's a critical impact for us as we kind of think about recessionary trends. And we're kind of in a galloping recession mode right now, where we've got a lot of money that's been put into the economy nationwide by the Fed. We have a bunch of extra money that's been put in by the state. So here in California, so you kind of got a double whammy of extra dollars added that are not a result of economic activity. And then in addition to that, demand for goods and services is outstripping supply. So that's going to have an issue of continuing to potentially push inflation through 2022 is what the economists are saying. So those are the things that we're kind of need to drill into and think about when we look at what happens, past 23 and what goes. They do say they're projecting right now in some instances that interest rates in 23 begin to come back down, or inflationary rates begin to come back down, I'm sorry, in 23. So what is that going to leave us with? We don't obviously know, but.
Right. And we can always refine and go back to these models, and as we get more information, update them and kind of see what happens with the trend line as it goes forward.
And we do continuously evaluate these and make updates, and as we see things that change significantly, we change. One example of that that's a positive would be, we're in the process of trying to transition the RDA property over to the city for the wastewater operation. And so that's the last thing that Beaumont needs to do to be able to close the RDA for the city of Beaumont. By doing that, that's going to generate about another $260,000 of property tax that's currently going to RDA that will come to your coffers. But that's a key thing that will, for example, change part of our evaluation here. So hopefully we're getting that resolved, and once that happens, then, that'll come in and address this in addition to all the other things that we're looking at.
So really what we're looking at is basically like a snapshot in time, and this chart is really dynamic. It's gonna fluctuate based on the economy, obviously. The thing that I thought or had a question on or a concern over was inflation, and would that bring about an economic slump sooner than what we're showing? It's,
It could, they're talking about inflation rising and going through all the way till 23, and then having a relief come in 23. So that's something that we will continue to monitor. And if it does, we can go back and refine these models and put different assumptions into them. As far as tonight goes, what we wanted to see is if for starting the budget workshop and starting the budget process, if we're on the right track. So if we're using the right assumptions currently and moving those going forward, now what you'll see later on in budget workshops when we come back is that we will have refined them as more information comes out. And we can go back and revisit these models and currently update them and see where they're going.
well, I appreciate the conservative approach myself.
So to follow up on Mike's comments, inflation is good for property values though, right? When inflation goes up, the property values go up, and therefore our taxes would also increase, tax revenue. Just, I don't know if you've figured that in. And then the question I had for you is, do you have a explanation for the delta diverging in 31, 32?
Yes, and in that 31, 32 area is where we're looking at the area competition that we're going to have for housing and for commercial growth. And so what our forecast shows is that we're kind of in a slowing trend, overall when you look at development in Beaumont. And so if you look at the population and housing forecast at, I think, 2042, we show the city's about 3/4 built out by then. So you're in a population of about 75,000, and we're looking at a build-out population for the city in total of, 95 to 100,000.
Okay.
So we think, and what our models show is that, that your rate of growth is going to kind of slow down as you fill up, as land becomes more affordable outside of Beaumont, because the more we build, the higher the value that land's going to be, and the less affordable it's going to be to build here.
No, I think you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Comment?
Go ahead.
On the, on the value side, if there's an inflation, the way we think that the inflation will put up all the value on real estate and the on the goods and services out there. But the thing is on the real estate side, and also on the finance side, there will be challenges for the Fed to hold the interest rate down. We have to keep eye on that. Right now we have about 2.99 or even a 2.375. That's why the people start coming in and buying. But the thing is, the inflation is one is the gas and other supplies we have. That's the challenges we're getting. Now what will happen on the Fed, they have to increase their interest to recover that. I mean, if not right now, there'll be 5 years from now. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I would say 3 years. That's a lot of money out there. That's why I asked, I put up the comment I have in here is the if possible, if we could get somebody to dedicate half of her or his time to do the the grant, study that, and then somebody has to be maybe an ambassador or someone to work on the grant, because there's a 1.2 trillion, and I think Southern California, we got 6.2 billion that is allocating on our side. So we have to be aggressive and to minimize and hold our reserves. And I like the model that we're doing in here. You got 17 million in there, and I do believe that Todd, you're right. I mean, we have to do some allocation of those funds and be conservative. And at the same time, I like to take care of I'll take this time, man. I mean, this opportunity on here is to, if we could, do the investments at the same time, pay up our CalPERS, take care of our employees. And I think we're only at 6 or 7 million in there. I think, if we do take care of that, even there's a discount, and that discount will keep on going up. I mean, CalPERS, if we pay it off, that's a good savings for us on that. That's my take on that. And then back again on the value, there will be a recession, and this is my personal take on this. 2024 and 25 will be up there on the recession side. So because of the what the Fed will do is to increase the interest rate, and then right now, what's the Fed on that? I mean, on the cost of fund is 0.01. I mean, it's so cheap. It's nice to borrow money right now. So, but it will turn around. You're right. In 2023, everything will change on that. That's my take on that. I'm out there and dealing with the finance and the real estate side. So on the real estate side, we have to be aggressive and everything, and deal with the consequences of. I'm not saying people who bought the property for 2.5, 2 interest rate, but on a higher point, they're going to lose it. They have to move on that. So because of the economic impact on that. So that's my take. Hopefully, I enlightened a little bit on that. It's a negative, but it's a positive for me to share that to the city, because within 2 or 3 years will be a different ballgame for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Finn.
Thank you. Mr. Pardon, I appreciate you guys with staff taking a look with the Prop 13 delay and assessed value. My experience from the San Gorgonio Pass Water Agency, and we covered Calamasa to Whitewater, we saw a 2-year lag. But one thing we did notice is that Beaumont accounted for nearly half of the revenue for the agency. And so my question is, if we keep that 1-year model on a recession, and those assessed values taking a year to be readjusted, and so therefore if it were a crash today, we would expect lower property tax revenues in 1 year. Do you think it's safe to make an adjustment and maybe go a little longer with that? Or does it really not affect the numbers because that is not our sole revenue source? At the water agency, the past water agency, property taxes were our sole source. And so we were affected greater by that. With that in the back of my mind, I just wanted to just bring that up and kind of a double check question.
So the trend analysis that we did on the AV impact, it's actually, you have 2 years of depression of AV. 1 year of flat. So I believe in the '09 period, what you saw was a 15% hit in the first year, about a 7% hit the second year, and then it bellied out at 0% decrease. And then it took 3 years to climb back up after that. So it was a total of about a 5-year cycle to 6-year cycle.
Gotcha.
So it took 3 years to get back to where you started, and it took another year to get back to where you would.
Where you
normally
should have
on the
been at that
trend
point
line.
if it didn't happen, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I think what we see in our model is very similar to what you saw there. And so the impact that we saw, the total impact over that 2-year period was that, or that 3-year period was that 27% loss of AV. And so, and it's interesting when you look at parcel transactions that occurred in that time period where you saw homes that are now on the tax roll for 400 or 450 that were purchased in the low 200s, for example. So you had homes, some homes that actually sold for, probably 60% of what their actual original purchase price was, So I think it sounds like with the model that's here, it's consistent. Now, the property tax portion for us brings in about $4.5 million a year. So that's about a tenth of your general fund revenue. So that impact, although it hurts to lose a few $100,000 in revenue, it isn't a massive loss of revenue for you on your general fund revenue stream. So things that stabilize it, the CFD assessments that come in for services, those types of things, and administration, those kind of stabilize. That's about, in terms of CFD, that's about $3.5 million that comes over, transferred in from CFD. And then you've got your sales tax. And what concerns me more is the sales tax side, because that is so volatile.
And did the city see a decrease, well, I would assume they did, in retail sales tax coming in from the 2008 crash, and how long did that take to recover? Is there a model that you're able to use similar to the property taxes, or just looking back at historical data to see how long it took to come back up?
You had continual growth. Your sales tax year over year
okay.
continued to rise.
Nice problem to
Yeah.
have.
But here's the deeper, so when you peel that onion back, you look at it, when you look at the per capita sales, because one of the things that we look at every quarter is, how's that changed? And so what that per capita number shows, it's very consistent throughout the extended period of time. So you look at the trends, the times of year where it peaks, and you look at the amount of dollars that are spent per capita, it's consistent. So no matter how much we've grown, the actual per capita impact is consistent through time period, through everything else. And when you compare that to other cities, like you look at Calamasa, you look at Banning, our per capita number is very consistent with theirs. Pattern and number, we're about maybe 5% higher per capita than they are right now. When you compare that to Paris or Moreno Valley, their per capita revenue is much higher. Well, Paris, they've got the logistics center and the lifestyle centers, right? Moreno Valley has additional sales taxes that are collected. So, and you look at Redlands is another one that we comp against. And you see a major community that has a regional retail draw. And so, their numbers are significantly higher, probably 40% higher than ours are per capita. So that tells me that's local spending. Those are people spending local on basics, at Walmart, at, our base services. Last quarter, so Q2 of last year to Q2 of this year, we saw a 10% growth in sales tax revenue when you adjust for last year to this year. So, and that's attributable back to the fact that we've added population and people have continued to spend locally. So, so as we continue to see that population growth, and the way our model would work is, as our housing and population continues to grow on that trend, then we're looking out on a per capita basis in terms of what that trend will be on that sales tax generation. The factor that we need to think about, and we may close that delta between the blue and the orange line, would be as we, we've got the movie theater open now. We've got Raising Cane's, and we've got, In-N-Out and Panera and, Sonic, and we've got all these new additional fast casual restaurants that have added. That's been a sector that's had a primary growth in the city, has been in those sectors. Yeah, not surprisingly. So services and fast casual dining are some of your major growth sectors right now. So as area population continues to grow, there's only going to be one Ono Hawaiian Grill, in this area. And so they'll see, growth, and they'll see expansion in that business model that's there. So there's a certain compounding effect that'll grow over time. And as long as they're stable to positive population growth, we should see that trend in that sales tax side continue. The question will be, if it gets tough and available dollars per household begin to dry up through whatever factors, then that per capita spending may drop. And so that's an adjustment that we need to further analyze and look at what would that window be. I know in the city I worked at prior to this, I could tell you that 80% of our sales tax revenue was local spending, 20% was from outside at a certain time of the year. I could tell you when it would switch over to 60-40. I could tell you, that in recessionary periods, we would be probably at about 85% of home, typical per capita spending at the local level. So that's the kinds of things that we need to look at here in this model, is to factor those things into here and better fine tune our sales tax number. But those are the things that I think we'll continue to see, and those are the dynamics that are going to continue to push your sales tax numbers up.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Councilman Finn.
Mayor, can I, just to, follow up on this, Todd, looking on the data on the sales tax alone, and 2019, prior to pandemic, because you mentioned that, we are up 5.5 million revenue on that. And then on the 2020, it shows on the, on the data, we were 6.5 million on that. Now, on 2021, we are 7.5 million. Think about that. I mean, Todd, their model and everything is doing well. It's amazing. I mean, well, in other words, the council is doing so well. I mean, the city itself and the staff is doing all the, the work we need to do on this. The only thing we have to do is actually, give us some more data in there, and then I know there will be a slowdown on the population a little bit, but I think if we maintain our reputation on other cities and also in public, I think we will still continue, but there will be, he's right, I mean, there will be a flat on the sales tax. So we have to be prepared on that. But the sales tax right now, since 2019, even now, pre-pandemic and then the post-pandemic, we're doing well. It's amazing. I mean, you're right. I mean,
What's interesting with the data too is when you go back and you look at the other comparators throughout Riverside County, Beaumont had probably one of the lowest growths in sales tax as a percentage from Q2 in 21 to Q2 in 2020. You say, why would that be? Well, because again, we continue to see positive growth in our sales tax numbers, and others had decreases. They actually experienced declines in some of their revenue streams, and so we didn't. So we've continued to have positive growth in the housing markets. We were down to 275 new permits last year. That's because the subdivisions ran out of ready-to-go lots to sell. So, we're now on track to do 600 now this year, so a little bit of a makeup on that. So again, those trends are there. We're seeing consistency. We're seeing stability from those sectors right now.
doing well, huh?
Okay. So this model is a general fund spending threshold, and it's used to establish spending thresholds, which help to ensure that budgetary allocations are sustainable over a multi-year period. current city staff model indicates that the general fund could typically sustain an annualized increase of 2.4%. So this model affirms sustainability of spending with the revenue projections for the next 5 fiscal years. So we're really looking at this to see if we can maintain spending patterns that go over the next 5 years. Because that's really what you want to, hone in on is what's going to happen over those next 5 years. Even though we're planning for longer than that, can we continue? And we want to be no more than 2% off in our estimates. So refining the models and checking them to make sure that we're within that percentage rate is what's going to help us to stay close. And if we go back and we're constantly looking at them, updating them, reviewing them, we should stay within that percentage. Did you have anything to add on that one?
Well, and again, when you look at those spending thresholds, if you go to the last table on your staff report, so page 17, you'll see this table, and that just kind of shows you kind of what the spending thresholds would look like and kind of how we're looking to utilize that. So where are we with end-of-year reserve fund balances? And one of the things that we're trying to target from a sustainability perspective is we know that we're going to have periods of time where revenue is going to exceed our expenditures, within reason. We also know that there may be times where we may have to do some program drawdowns of your reserve fund. And so in contemplating that, we say, okay, what would that look like? So if you try to maintain your 25% threshold and benchmark, we say, okay, where does that take us? So if you look at our preliminary projected end-of-year fund balance at 17.39 million, for the end of 21 to start 22, and then you take that forward, what does that look like? And what you show here is even program times, for example, where you would take dollars out and program that to your CIP for one time. So we're maintaining that remaining reserve balance, you do begin to drop down, once you get to some of your outer years. But from that perspective, then we know what does that spending threshold look like? And then when you take the mission, vision, goals, and then we also look at the criticalities. We say, okay, where are the areas that we would grow? What areas do we have that we need to maybe economize on to be able to hit within the thresholds that we're establishing here? And again, so what happens here in this model, again, gets reflected back into the other budgets. So our internal service fund side, the wastewater fund side, all the other budgets are going to be implicated as we kind of implement the same basic concepts. And it's really driven off of that population, housing, commercial growth, and then it kind of builds off of that as our basis.
Mayor, I have a question.
Councilmember Martinez?
So explain to me then, when you're modeling, you typically account for increased spending anyway. And you put, our spending a little higher every year and so forth. Is that what this 2.5% is, or is that's already factored in your increase, and now this is additional 2.5 of increased costs?
No, this is your spending threshold. So this tells you how much do you actually have available to program. And so this is not so that spending increase is simply on this model with the revenue trends that we're forecasting out. How much additional would you have available to spend year over year? And so, if these thresholds are within reason, then as we're preparing the budget for this year, then, we will then look at what that end of year number is going to be, what adjustments we think we need to make for, whatever factors, whether it's payroll or whether it's, fuel costs or whatever those things are that go into the increased costs just to maintain the current level of operations. And then what does that cost? And then out of that, how much additional growth revenue do we have left? So if we have 2.5 million of growth potential, let's say in the general fund side in our budget forecast, let's say that 1 million more is needed to operate the same levels of service, then that leaves you 1.5 million that you can then program in for program enhancements for the coming year. And we know, based on this model, that we can absorb that and maintain that into future years. So then you do the same thing for the next year. right? So what grows to maintain that level of service that was done from the next year? And then what additional revenues do you have to do further program enhancements to continue to grow into the areas that you see as most critical? So again, the premise here is that we know a baseline, we know the threshold we have, let's say for next year, that we were targeting towards. And then we know that, so if you look at it this perspective, and if you were to flatline that cost, you know you can maintain that allocation. You know, you can sustain that for at least 5 years.
So if you were looking at, let's say, perhaps payroll that was considerably over that, now you're talking about a whole adjustment back to the model because that's not sustainable.
That's correct.
On that
That's
threshold.
correct. Yeah. So what we're simply trying to say here is what is the reasonable threshold that we should program on the general fund? And then when we apply those same concepts over into the wastewater fund, what's a reasonable under, you know, assumptions of rate and growth that we have available to allocate on the wastewater side, for example?
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Comment quickly.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. Quickly on this, I mean, looking on this model, on the threshold, so it means we're on diminishing within 15 years. I mean, when I say diminishing point on this, it's the, you know, we're on 17 and then drop to 10 million on this. I mean, you know, so we have to be aware, and I'm glad that, you know, telling us, be aware on this, what's going on, the way you explain it out right now. And I really appreciate that. I mean, so we have to be really, the council has to be more informed, and also, you know, I think we need more, not education, I mean, more explanation in what's the trend in out there. So we could sustain the, you know, the pool operations on this. I really appreciate this. Thanks a lot. I mean, I don't want to lose, you know, on almost 60% or 70% within 15 years on my reserve on this. This is very useful, and really well we could tackle this. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Santos.
Mr. Mayor, quick question.
Councilmember Finn.
On our allocated to CIP, what are the $2-3 million earmarks for?
Those are just, those would be, if you have that cash available to you at that time, that those are significant points where you begin to push above. So you're hitting a threshold now of 35% in your reserve fund. And so the way our policy is set, once you begin to go above 25, and by the time you hit that 10% above your threshold, you need to consider allocating those dollars over to capital.
Okay,
So
but-
this is kind of taking that into consideration.
But not specifically assigned to a particular project at this time?
Correct, correct.
Okay,
If you had those funds at that time, that'd be a time to look to program that out of your unobligated reserves into capital.
okay. I just didn't know if it was assigned to something just yet. Okay, thanks.
Am I missing something? I didn't see CIP in the discussion.
Oh, it's on page 17. It's that model that's in your packet.
Oh, in the package, okay.
So Lloyd, if you look at this table.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, the process, if I remember how we do this budget process, the first meeting is basically for you to come to us and tell us what formulas you're using, how you're moving forward, and that we don't really get into the details at this point until you guys come back to us and say, okay, after you've all agreed that this is the way we should proceed, that then you're going to come back and bring us more detailed numbers, and then we start to really
Yes.
dig in and, okay.
Yeah. And that's what we're still doing. So we've got a little bit more detail now for you. And so we just want to kind of make sure y'all are comfortable with how we're building and kind of the components as we're moving forward. So
Okay.
it'll build off of this.
No, I really appreciate that, having more detail on this. You know, it's easy to see and understand it. Thank you.
Yeah, we're just building, bringing back the models to show you kind of how we are building them and if the assumptions, the core assumptions are right in line.
Okay.
So this one right here is population estimates. And so since 2007, the city has seen continuous growth in its population by an average of 5% each year. The population data provided from the 2020 U.S. Census estimates Beaumont's population to be 53,036 as of April 2021. The population forecast estimate uses prior year data and adds estimated single-family and multifamily permits final by average household size to project the additional population for each continuous year. So as you can see, once you get out to the outer years, you're getting close to the 73, 75,000 population that city manager was speaking of earlier. It starts to do a leveling out, and that goes with you when you have the competition from your neighboring cities. And so you'll see that leveling out kind of in the 2033 and beyond, but then reaching to that 75 population, 75,000. And then this is single-family home permits. And so you really want to pay attention to this because 75% of your tax base is off single-family residences. So this utilization, it's a model utilizes the current community development project information and historical permit data is used to forecast future permit projections. And staff determines the number of permits estimated to be final in the fiscal year by adding 2 years of homes permitted and multiplying by an average permits final percentage factor. And so that you can see that there's some volatility here, so the ups and downs. And that's been plugged into the model. And, you know, there's going to be continued volatility. It moves up and down. And as you go on, you know, longer throughout the years, you're going to have a smaller share of regional housing market. And so you're going to see the decrease in those permits. And then I'll stop there and see if there's any questions with the population or the single-family home permits models.
And that's dip in 2027 is consistent with the dip that we're showing in our general fund forecasting comparison as well, which is always,
Correct.
okay. Very good.
Mayor, can I-
Councilmember Santos.
quick questions in here. I mean, on the single-family homes permitted, and then the single-family homes final, is that completed? The one on the final, that's a completed single-family home?
Yeah, so the way you calculate those, you take your 2 years of permitted and then times a final factor to it to figure out what your final permits are going to be.
I'm just adding on mentally on here right now, 2021, which is now, on single-family homes.
Your mic's not on.
Sorry about that. So I'm just concentrating on this. I mean, seems like there's on the final single-family homes, it shows, probably I would say 2,500 something completed units. I just throwing that, sorry, I mean, not actual number in there. So 2021 to 2028, why did I pick that up? I mean, because of the RENA. There's an RENA allocation for us of 4,200. That's why I look at this, I said, oh, okay. So probably we're on the not compliance. I mean, we'll be able to, get the goal of 4,200, and I'm rounding up numbers on this. If I add the 150 of the is MF is multi-family, so we will be building only 150 on 2023 and 150 on units on that on 150 on 2028. So total is 300. If I add that on the 2025, so that will be a total of 28 or 3,000. So we'll be short of 1,200 for the RENA allocation on this. Are we on? I know you're doing a model in here, not the any actual on this. So how are we gonna work on this RENA allocation on this if we're short of 1,000 or 1,200?
Well, I think RENA's not realistic. you know, and so, you know, particularly when you're looking at, we've got 6 years left to hit that, what, 3.5 million statewide number that was set as the benchmark. So in looking at this, what we looked at was, you know, what do we reasonably think would happen in actual terms on the ground? So kind of thinking this would reflect more reality of where we would
Good.
be.
Okay.
But if you'd like, we can kind of go back and try to factor in and look at what Reno would do to these.
Oh, that would
If
be
you would
good.
like
I
us
mean,
to,
because,
yeah.
you know, they're on top of this and everything, and so we could ask for more funding on this.
And a lot of the, you know, the majority of permits that we're issuing now really don't qualify, you know, under RETA. You know, when you look at the, are they meeting the definition of what is an affordable, you know, or workforce housing under the RETA definition? So, you know, so we've got what market-based housing looks like for our community here. And then the RETA is going to be, I think, an add to that, because that's an entirely different sub-market or different market than what this is really showing us.
No, I agree with you on that. I mean, looking on the general plan, we have the multifamily residence is on the south side, and I'm excited about that. I mean, you know, but the thing is, we have to, on the economic development, we have to market that, so we could probably within 5 years or 6 years, it will happen on that. And I like the way we put that, you know, put together on the zoning side, and then, you know, our forecast on that. Thank you, Todd. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So financial factors needed for consideration during the budget process are to ensure resources are deployed as effectively and efficiently as possible. The survey results are used to determine the level of criticality between city programs and any deficiencies that need to be addressed. Routine monitoring of local and regional economic trends are used to update revenue projections to maintain accurate forecast revenues. And so what we were really doing, like we were saying, is we want to make sure that you're comfortable with the assumptions and the models that we're using. What we'll continue working on is refining those forecast efforts, and we'll echo those out to the wastewater fund and other funds as we move forward in the process. And look at the one-time funds and bring that to city council later and recommendations on how to prioritize and use those funds. And so what do we have next? We have department budget submissions that'll start December through February. Preparation of a balanced budget. You should receive your first draft April of '22. And that budget, that first draft should achieve city council mission, vision, and goals, prioritize critical programs, and address deficiencies within our programs. And then have some city council budget workshops from April until we finalize the budget in June.
A quick question on the department budget submissions. We just started doing that after you got here, right? So how many years have we been doing the actual department's budgets?
Well, we've been doing those. I guess the first budget was just adopted right when I got here, so this will be the 5th one that we do. If you ask the staff, they'll tell you they've done 30,000 of them. So, but they've really only done 4.
But I remember in a meeting you had acknowledged to us that they were finally doing, they hadn't had to do department budgets
Right.
previously.
And the way that works is, you know, we don't quite do zero-based. We do really kind of a modified method of budgeting. So, so we look at partly an accrual basis, and then partly a program-based analysis. And so really what happens is this is what we need in terms of maintaining operations, you know, moving forward. And then here are the additional departmental requests, you know, for enhancements, whether they're people or things or equipment. And then there's justification that they submit with that. And then we also ask the departments to prioritize those enhancements, you know. So if you ask for 5 things as enhancements and you can justify those, which are the most important to you in rank order? So then we know how to go above and below the spending threshold that we've established. So that'll be the departmental process, and then they submit that, and then they process that through finance, and then finance asks their questions and goes through their due diligence, and then finance and I will sit down with each department and walk through their budgets.
And then we get your summary at the end, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And what that summary will include is what's proposed in the city manager's budget, and then it'll show what enhancements were included in that, and then what enhancements were not included. So you'll actually see what the departmental request was, what's included in that, and what was left out. And then for deliberation, you could look at those and say, we really would like you to go back and pick this item up. We believe that should have been included. So you've got all that information coming forward to you.
Will the enhancement also include the justification that the director used? Okay.
Yes, yes, Mayor.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Come a long way.
Yeah.
It didn't happen until Jennifer got here. As soon as Jennifer got here, we were able to actually pull some things off.
right.
So now you can just write her coattails.
Way to go,
right?
Jennifer.
Exactly.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Actually, sleep at night now.
That's
Mr. Mayor?
very good work on the mission statement as well as the vision and the goals. I appreciate that a lot. I'm sure council does as well.
Mr. Mayor, I got a quick
Sure.
question. So through this process, will there be any discussions on reserve requirements and so forth? And, for example, just in general, just because you have a balanced budget doesn't mean you have to, you're aiming for that doesn't mean you have to spend all the money that's there. Some things that are important to me that I'd like to see is that if we're able to look at that reserve policy and see what the reserve, what we have in reserves and what we can potentially earmark for paying off CalPERS's unfunded liability in the future, money set aside for the police and fire department. So if we have grant fund coming in and we have to match some of that, we've got funds available. And the ever looming traffic problem that I keep hearing over and over and over.
Right.
So if we can keep that in mind, that I don't think it would be a problem if we needed to adjust our reserve requirements, so we had larger money sitting there waiting for these projects when they're ready, that we have our funds to be able to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah.
And
we
so
get
if
it.
that's needed, I would certainly like to look at that reserve policy, that we don't force ourselves into spending money somewhere else and then we go, darn it, we should have hung on to it for this, as a just general thought process behind it all. Thanks.
And we'll get into that detail. Yeah.
Okay.
Good points. So do you need a motion from us, or do you just need the information that we've given you throughout the presentation?
I don't think we need a motion, but
Okay.
as long as we've
We're
got
good.
kind of
I
clear
don't-
on the direction.
I think it's consistent with council,
Yeah, you're very good.
on target.
Great.
Very good.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Very
Great
good job.
Thank you, Todd.
So does this mean Jennifer will be here again tomorrow?
Yeah, yeah. Probably all 8 days of the week she'll be here.
8 days a week.
All right, so with that, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 5:54.
Good job, Mayor. Way to go.